many Africans are damning the consequences and traveling through the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe in the hope of better life. Last year, a record 180,000 migrants crossed the sea, while thousands drowned on the way. Several sensitization drives don't seem to adequately deal with that problem, and the sea and of course the deserts continue to swallow thousands of those who have traveled that path. Their ultimate aim is to reach Europe, where they believe the grass is greener. And this week's look at European politics, we focus on African migration to Europe and how the issue is impacting politics there. Political correspondent for our partner station DWTV, Thomas Sparrow, had a conversation with me yesterday. There have been reports in Europe-based newspapers that Germany is expecting an estimated 400,000 migrants to at least attempt to enter Europe through the Mediterranean. Let's start with how the German government is dealing with the current migrant situation in the country.
Well, on the one hand, trying to integrate those who are already here. That happens, for example, by teaching them German culture, by trying to make sure that they can find a job or they can find some sort of education. So on the one hand, that clear integration aspect. On the other hand, making sure that those who are not allowed to stay, the rejected asylum seekers, can return back to their countries. And that happens, for example, by having bilateral agreements with certain countries, by trying to foster or promote voluntary repatriation, voluntary return to the countries of origin. So essentially trying to avoid the chaos that we saw in 2015 and the beginning of 2016, when it was clear that German authorities were struggling to deal with the migration influx.
Interesting, because we're looking at an estimated 400,000 influx of migrants, many of whom are Africans. Are there any specific ways that the government intends to deal with the influx? And we're looking at that 400,000 estimation for this year.
Indeed. I mean, if you look, for example, at the statistics of March 2017, the migrants that arrived in Germany in March 2017, you will see that among the top 10 nationalities, there are 3 African countries: Eritrea, Somalia, and Nigeria. So indeed, German authorities are focusing not only on the countries that we heard in 2015 and 2016, like Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, but also on some of the African countries. There are bilateral agreements with countries in Africa, in Northern Africa specifically, and also wider programs in the region to try and make sure that those who are coming are helped if they need to be helped, if they can be granted asylum, but also to make sure that African countries themselves can deal with the situation. That's what German authorities believe is important, fighting the root causes of migration. And something interesting is that German authorities, even this week, were just mentioning that something they want to focus on is with the African migrants that are already here in Europe and who send remittances back, to make sure that those remittances that they send back can also be used, for example, to improve the economic situation in their respective countries.
That's quite interesting, but how exactly are they able to have those details of the African migrants who are living there? Because you need to know who they are before you can track the remittances.
Well, that was, in fact, a problem that they had in 2015, 2016, knowing who was actually coming in the country. That's one of the main challenges that German authorities have. And in fact, they have improved in the last few months in knowing who is coming to the country, who gets registered as an asylum seeker, who gets authorized then as an asylum seeker, or who isn't authorized as an asylum seeker. And from those databases, knowing who is coming into the country and also who is coming into other countries in Europe, they can then decide how to move forward. In many cases, they already know, for example, by tracking the remittances back, how much that amounts to, and they're hoping now to work with the diaspora here in Germany to make sure that at least part of that remittances that go back to the countries of origin are used by the people in the countries of origin to try and improve the economic situation, to try, for example, and build certain companies or economic ventures. So in other words, that is not only a personal remittance, if you will, but also that they can make sure that it works for the good of the respective city or the respective country. Your
weekly dose of European politics with Thomas Sparrow, political correspondent with partner station, DWTV.